Do you fancy an outing? Let's go down to the Romney Marsh and the seaside town of New Romney and check out the charity shops. If you love thrift hauls with a flower arranging twist, crafting videos and of course DIY tutorials on how to make the best flower arrangements around, you're in the right place, and I would love it if you would consider subscribing to my channel. All you need to do is to tap the button marked subscribe, and that means next time you open the YouTube app on your phone, your tablet or your computer, one of my videos will be waiting for you. I'm here for a weekend away with my thrifting pals Jan and Lisa, and we've booked ourselves in to a cheap holiday caravan, so we got access to all the local charity shops. And here we are on Saturday morning visiting the British Red Cross on Romney High Street. We spotted 3.5 charity shops on the high streets at New Romney: the British Red Cross, the Pilgrim's Hospice, there was one for a local counselling service, and then another charity shop that looked like it was either being refurbished or possibly closing down. So you can see here, getting ready for Christmas. I'm busy decluttering all my Christmas decorations, so I'm not really in the market for anything new, but this pair of tins caught my eye. Now, if you've been following me along in my Facebook group Flower Start World, you might recognise those tins. They are biscuit tins with little music boxes inside, which come from Marks and Spencer's, and way back when, probably during lockdown in 2020, I can remember painting one of mine and just rubbing back on the surface a little bit to reveal some of that gold detail. And with Christmas around the corner, my eye has been taken by a couple of easy read Christmas stories, so they did come home with me. But what has caught my eye is this coffee table book, which was also another purchase. I think it was £2.50. So let's have a closer look at these pages once I get home. And if you like the look of this book and perhaps want to gift it as a present for someone this year, I'll make sure I leave a link to it in the description underneath this video. I've already had a flick through at some of the pages which have caught my eye, obviously looking at flower vases and lots of flower arrangements. I rather like the teapot on the bottom right hand of the page. It almost looks like a little cartoon drawing. Some vases like that have caught my eye on Instagram recently, so that's what I'm looking out for my next DIY project, is a flat fronted vase that I can ink in edges to create my own cartoon look. Oh, and a special chapter here dedicated to me, Lisa and Jan, the hunter-gatherer shopper. We do love going to every single charity shop which we come across. Can you see the transferware crockery? I've got quite a collection now of the red and the blue. I got rid of some of my green pieces recently, and I've also got several brown transferware plates on my vintage store. So if you live in the UK, make sure you have a look at that. There's a link to it in the description underneath the video. Some white vases here. The mantle vases caught my eye. I think I owned something like that a while ago, but I've been whittling down my collection of mantle vases, trying to hone in on the ones I truly love and actually use. The joy of flower arranging for me is embracing the changing seasons. So I really do love to buy flowers that have a limited seasonal life. Of course, there's always those all-round favourites, roses, chrysanthemums and carnations, but it's so nice to embrace the changing seasons. And if you have perhaps a collection of silk flowers, artificial flowers, I highly recommend only using those in season 2. It's tulips in the springtime, berries and autumn leaves at the end of the year. And if you need it, this book's got a section on the basic flower arrangers kit. Such glorious photographs. And with the festive period coming up at the end of the year, perhaps your thoughts are turning towards creating your tablescape. That's just a general term used to describe setting your table, thinking about your tablecloths, your cutlery, your plates, your crockery, and of course the added extra of what flower arrangements you're going to use. And if you're in need of some ideas, let's have a look at 8 ways to make your table elegant. I particularly like this white on white look here, with a linen tablecloth and the pretty white crockery. On the subject of Christmas, Have you seen the video I filmed when I flicked through the pages of the Christmas edition of the Country Living magazine? If you haven't seen that, I'll make sure I leave a link to that in the description underneath this video. Well, that's the first charity shop done. Let's head over the road and check out Pilgrim's Hospice. And this is a store that's well worth visiting. It was quite large, with a good mix of clothing and bric-a-brac items. What do you think of these little vases here? You may have seen something similar in my recent mega haul that I shared a few weeks ago. Again, I'll leave a link to that in the description underneath the video. So they've got a little Christmas set up to one side. Can you see all the Christmas jumpers off on the racks? And then onto the general bric-a-brac and a little bit of vintage too. The celebratory mugs for the Queen's Silver Jubilee. And here there's one that's a little bit older. £5. Celebrating the coronation of George VI. And who doesn't love a little flower arranging basket? The ceramic detail there marked as seen. I think probably that little rose has got a few chips and petals missing. And then heading up to the back wall, past the little craft section, there are those little bubble vases again. I quite like the white crockery. The mugs there with the teaspoon detail. Let's have a good scan around. Trifle bowl all set for Christmas. Lots of glassware. Linens too. And up above they have a really lovely collection of these vintage mirrors. Such a lovely detail. Right, let's head off and check out the next charity shop. This is Faith, Hope and Charity, a shop that's raising funds for a local counselling service. The window was absolutely packed with all sorts of bric-a-brac, with a little bit of clothing too. It's quite a small space, so we did have to manoeuvre ourselves around other customers in the store. So as always, it's always good to check out what's in the window. Had a quick look at the blue and white transferware. I'm actually looking for a red and white transferware cup. I can't quite find one that's got the right combination of a deep saucer, quite a big teacup and thin enough crockery. I do like a cup of tea out of a thin teacup. And the half a charity shop I mentioned, it's the Sunflower Charity Shop. I'm not sure whether they were refurbishing or closing down. So 4 charity shops in New Romney, we headed off to Dymchurch, where there were 2 charity shops, both Pilgrim's Hospice. One's got the clothing and the bric-a-brac, and the other one, which was over the road and actually closed when we visited, was books and maps. As it happened, all of us, Jan, Lisa and myself, bought quite a lot in the first charity shop in New Romney, and not so much as we made our way back towards Hythe. But that's part of the fun, don't you think? You never quite know what you're going to find. Sometimes you hit the jackpot and sometimes you don't. Well, we get back in the car and let's head off to Hythe, which is about a 10-minute drive away. We managed to find a spot for some on-street parking where we didn't have to pay, past that lovely little metal church, and crossed over the Royal Military Canal and headed on into town. So as the sign says, welcome to Hythe. It's well worth a visit, and even better on a sunny day. We headed to the Nutmeg Cafe for a cup of tea and a slice of cake. I think this is the 3rd time we visited the cafe, and in the summer there's a tiny little courtyard at the back. So we headed off to the other end of the high street, starting at the Lord Whisky Charity. My eye is drawn to the top shelf. Can you see the scalloped edge bowl? I'm wondering whether that's Chippendale glass with the trophy-style handles. I'm always on the lookout for vintage flower arranging paraphernalia. Little glass flower frog there. And on this shelf here, a rose bowl with a gridded lid. So this looks to be inset into a little copper basket. When I turn it over, $7.99, just way out of my price league. And while this container and its flower frog didn't come home with me, I was drawn to these little bubble vases. I think the first one I showed you at the Pilgrim's Hospice in New Romney was £4. These were in my price range. I would have preferred to have paid £1 each, but they were £1.50. £1.50. Now, do you remember watching the video I filmed of the flower festival at Dymchurch? And that was when I'd seen lots of bud vases across the church windowsill. I like the idea so much that I've decided to recreate that look at home. I spy more Christmas, and check out that little ceramic bowl. Wouldn't that make a fabulous Christmas gift? £5 from Spode. You could even put a little gift inside and tie it up with a red ribbon, using it as a very luxurious form of packaging. And it wouldn't be a trip to the charity shop without looking out and spotting Wedgwood Jasperware. Not personally to my taste, although I do have a couple of pieces at home. I'm not sure what this pattern's called, and if you're a Wedgwood expert, let me know in the comments. The Dymchurch charity shop had a dedicated bookshop, which I think last time we visited hadn't quite opened, absolutely packed with fabulous books, so naturally I went straight away to the craft shelves to see whether they had any flower arranging books. Now, I had a copy of this book many years ago, and I decluttered it a couple of years ago now. So if you're interested in contemporary flower arranging, I'll make sure I leave a link to that in the description underneath this video. Now, Jan, she was in charge of the raffle at our flower club last month, so she was on the lookout for raffle prizes, and this book went home with her and was won by a lovely lady called Sue. Doesn't that look absolutely glorious? And even if you weren't particularly into flower arranging, it would make a great coffee table book, a little bit of inspiration for how you could add more flowers to your life. And then it was time for lunch. We stopped at another favourite cafe, Roots, and a delicious lunch. Make sure you watch on to the end of the video and I'll show you what else I bought on our weekend away. We actually came home via Tenterden, so that was an added bonus. And of course, before we went home, we had to say hello to the seaside. And then dashed off to check out the incoming miniature steam train. What a total thrill. Now let's get on with the rest of the charity shop haul. The first thing I bought in Tenterden was rather expensive. I think I paid £6.50 for this glass dressing table tray, but I'd been specifically looking for something like this to put the herbs on. You know, the ones you buy from the supermarket and end up dying because you haven't not been able to water them enough. So I'm really pleased to be getting some good use out of this. I also bought some plant pots. I had rather erred in terms of sizing. I thought I'd estimated the correct sizes to rehouse some of the plants in the plastic pots, but I didn't quite get my sizing right. I paid £1.50 for this one. The blue one I think was £1, possibly £1.50. I'm not quite sure. And the only one that actually fit was the one for my little money plant. And I think that was £1.50 too. So I'm either going to have to pass on those pots that don't fit, or look out for some more plants that will fit. Oh, £2 that one was. And while I'm here, I'm just having a look at this little Spode dish, which actually I did buy in Hythe a couple of years ago. And working my way around the kitchen, I got a great car boot find for you. It's a little cut glass biscuit barrel. It's got a little bit dirty. These sedums that I have in the vase are just shedding some of their seeds. I can't remember how much I paid for this. I'm tempted to say it could have been as little as 50p. So it's fortunate it's got a little detachable wicker handle. I have given this a really good wash when I first got it, but it's got that sort of aged yellowness to the glass. If you've got any ideas how I can actually bring it back to life with its original sparkliness, do let me know in the comments. So I haven't actually used this biscuit barrel yet. What I have done though is to put a glass flower block inside and use it as a vase. And I put this basket to good use recently, filling it up with lots of trick-or-treat gifts. And from Halloween to Easter, I've bought myself this little cut glass Easter bowl. I'm imagining it is a perpetual Easter egg which I can fill up with tiny little chocolate eggs next springtime. So these are just spontaneous buys from the local charity shop in town. As was this. I took a friend out for lunch who's been recuperating from a recent hospital stay, and I've been on the lookout for ages for a book stand. And I did end up buying one on Etsy, a very modern looking one, but I thought at £2.75 it's probably time to pass on my modern stand and use this wooden one, which fits in more with the decor I've got at home. And as you can see, Maggie the dog is rather unimpressed with all the filming going on around her. Well, let's head back to the kitchen, and I've got a tray of goodies to show you. Now, this was a find from Hythe. I think it was the Cats Protection League, a classic little dish with a ceramic flower frog over the top. It almost looks like a pie crust that's been woven, and I thought this was amazing value at £2. I'm not sure who the maker is, but I'm guessing from the look of the glaze, it's probably dating from the 1920s or 30s, do you think? So I did put it through a Google Lens, but I can't be sure exactly what it is. There's a tiny little mark at the bottom, someone's initial. So perhaps if the rainy days of winter, I'll be doing some more exploring to find out what it is. But I do know what this vase is. I paid £3.50 for it, which I thought was a little bit over the top. But I've checked it out, and this is the Catherine vase from Bagley. I was rather amused that the description said it was barely a vase because it would hold little more than a few stems of sweet pea. And you know, I say I don't like the willow pattern. Well, at £2, I couldn't resist this little covered sugar bowl. I'm going to use it in the bathroom, somewhere to put my tweezers and my nail scissors so they're kept out of sight. Needs a bit of a wash first, though. And on the subject of blue and white, I did buy myself a blue and white plate when we went off for our weekend of charity shop shopping. This was £1. Now, I did make a blue and white plate wreath a year or so ago, and I've taken that apart now and sold on some of the saucers that I've been collecting. I just decided they were too small, so I'm on the lookout now for small tea plates and saucers so I can remake my plate wreath. And that's the joy of flower arranging and crafting. You don't have to stick with what you've got. You can be constantly changing things around. Now, I can't remember whether I've showed you this spode plate before. I bought it at the safari, the Faversham Safari, which is when the whole town comes out for a massive, what I guess in America you'd call a yard sale. And I bought each of these plates for £2, which I thought was good value for money. I'm wondering whether this floral plate looks like the tiny saucer I showed you when I was showing off my plant pots, but no. It's spode, but they're two different patterns. I'm half thinking that I might create a plate wall in our bathroom. So I'm going to take off these metal hangers, and my preferred hanger of choice are the yellow ones that are self-adhesive. It doesn't use the sort of tension spring, which can lead to damage on your plates. And if you're interested in sourcing the ones that I use, I'll try and remember to leave a link to them in the description underneath this video. So, blue and white collection to one side. What's next? Oh, something else blue and white. I'd forgotten about this. A little tulip vase. It's come from Kew. It's got the classic pagoda design on the side. And again, this came from the Faversham Safari. I think I only paid £1 for it. I actually bought it from the lady who showed me how to make the Polish stars. Have you seen that video? Make a great crafting project for Christmas. And again, I'll leave a link to that in the description underneath this video. I'm talking about Christmas makes. For ages I've had this idea of making a brooch wreath, so I've been on the lookout for all sorts of brooches over the years, and these three came from Car Boot Fair. The one I go to is at the Whitstable Bends, about 10 miles away, and I don't like to pay more than about 50p per brooch. If you go to the charity shop, sometimes they're priced up to £5. They're incredibly sparkly. I'm trying to convince myself these are real diamonds, but when you turn them over, you can see that the metalwork is quite naive in character. That's clearly not a setting befitting an actual diamond. Now, I'm wondering whether this is marquisite. My mum used to have some Margazite jewellery. I think I need to do a little bit more research on that. But most of the things I've bought have got a floral theme or a little bit of a colour linkage going on. That looks quite aged, doesn't it? So as I say, those dark winter months approaching, perhaps I will be doing a little bit more research to see what I've actually got. So I think probably now I've got enough brooches to make a start on a wreath. My idea is I'm going to bind a twiggy wreath with some velvet cloth and then pin them in place. I've got some Christmas tree candle holders there. And then some of the items were a sort of rustic colour, and that's because I'd picked up a few pieces in the same sort of rusty colours, and I just wanted things to go together. But we'll have to see whether I use the colourful items or stick for a diamond bling only Christmas store wreath. Now let's head back to the summer holidays. We had a week on the Isle of Wight. We did a little bit of walking, a little bit of charity shopping, a little bit of garden visiting, and I did visit a couple of churches. I love visiting a church. It's somewhere cool to have a rest, and quite often, as these churches did when we visited the Isle of Wight, they had refreshment stands, a little bit of an honesty box, and also bookstores, and I picked these two books up. And as I flicked through the book, I recognised one of the vases. It's a Peter Gronveld piece. Now, I've got 3 pieces of this particular maker's work, and I originally bought the first 2, which I thought were candle holders from a bric-a-brac sale at a flower arranging do. And then I put little bits of, you could see they'd had flower foam in them. But this piece here is what Jan gave me when she was decluttering. So it was quite nice to sort of meet an old friend in the book. I'm not sure I'll keep these 2 books long term, but they were a fun little holiday memento. Perhaps as I flick through them, it'll give you a few ideas for the upcoming festive period. I wouldn't necessarily write off old books and magazines for inspiration. There's always a little bit of an idea that will just kick something off in your brain and give you a spark of an idea for something you could do. Bring the ideas back up to date using more modern plant selections and materials. I'm just wondering whether I recognise any vases there too. If you're a paid up member of my YouTube channel, you're going to see some bonus footage, and if you're not, I'll say goodbye now and catch up with you next time.